Denim is universal. Worn across generations, classes, and cultures, it's supposed to symbolize freedom and equality. But when denim brands choose celebrity ambassadors, the reaction often has less to do with fabric and more to do with how we see race, gender, and power. That became clear with two very different campaigns: Sydney Sweeney's American Eagle ads and Beyonce's Levi's collaboration. At first, they looked simple: an actress in casual jeans, a global superstar in high-fashion denim. But the controversies that followed revealed much deeper issues. Not just about advertising, but about racial representation, beauty ideals, and even echoes of eugenic thinking in the way bodies are marketed to us. Let's unpack what made these campaigns so polarizing and what they tell us about how brands use celebrity to navigate race and desirability in modern culture. When American Eagle featured Sydney Sweeney, they leaned into her appeal as the classic all-American beauty. Blonde, blue-eyed, fair-skinned, traits historically elevated as the cultural standard of purity and wholesomeness in U.S. advertising. But this image doesn't exist in a vacuum. It ties directly to a history of beauty marketing shaped by eugenic ideals, where whiteness, and specifically a certain Nordic look, was promoted as superior, desirable, and marketable. The controversy around Sweeney wasn't just about sexualization. It was also about how her body was framed as both innocent and provocative, a duality long reserved in American media for white women, who could be sexualized without being vilified in the same way women of color often are. So when people saw Sweeney styled as a carefree, wholesome denim icon, it sparked a cultural question. Why does American Eagle keep returning to this same archetype? And what does it mean that whiteness continues to be the safe, default canvas for selling American identity through fashion? Beyonce's Levi's campaign presented a different but equally layered controversy. Levi's has always marketed itself as the denim of the people: cowboys, miners, and everyday workers. But historically, the brand, like much of American fashion, excluded or downplayed Black identity in its storytelling. Denim was a uniform of labor and resilience in Black communities as well, yet the mainstream imagery erased that history. So when Levi's brought in Beyonce, arguably the most powerful Black woman in popular culture, it seemed like a chance to reframe that narrative. But the execution raised red flags. Some critics saw the ads as polished to the point of sterility, stripping away the rawness of denim's cultural roots. Others pointed out the power dynamic. Was Levi's truly celebrating Black excellence? Or was it strategically using Beyonce's influence to update a brand that had fallen behind? In this sense, the controversy touched on the legacy of racial commodification. Black culture and Black bodies have long been appropriated by brands to appear modern, edgy, or relevant, without those brands addressing their own histories of exclusion. The result was an uneasy tension. Was Beyonce subverting that legacy, reclaiming denim as a symbol of Black empowerment? Or was she being used by Levi's in the same way brands historically used whiteness, to reinforce their marketability without challenging the system behind it? When you compare Sweeney and Beyonce, the racial dynamics become even sharper. Sydney Sweeney's campaign represented whiteness as aspirational, familiar, and safe, drawing directly from a century of eugenics-informed advertising that held up certain bodies as the embodiment of American beauty. Beyoncé's campaign represented the opposite challenge: how Black excellence gets commercialized. Instead of being excluded, her image was placed at the center of Levi's marketing, but in a way that raised questions of authenticity. Was it empowerment or tokenization? In one case, whiteness was normalized. In the other, Blackness was commodified. And this reflects a larger truth. Fashion advertising still struggles to break free from the racial hierarchies built into its foundations. Eugenics may sound like a relic of the past, but it's logic. The elevation of certain bodies as more desirable, marketable, or representative continues to shape who we see in campaigns and how we react to them. These controversies are bigger than jeans. They're about the images we consume daily and how they reinforce or challenge power structures. Sydney Sweeney's campaign showed how whiteness, even when controversial, is still positioned as the baseline for selling American lifestyle. The backlash was about sexualization, but underneath it was the discomfort of seeing eugenic-era beauty ideals alive and well in the 2020s advertising. Beyoncé's campaign showed how Black identity is both celebrated and commodified, praised when it sells, polished when it doesn't fit the corporate image, and ultimately used to refresh a brand's relevance. Both cases remind us that fashion isn't neutral, it's political. It carries the weight of history. Who has been excluded, who has been celebrated, and whose bodies are still treated as symbols instead of individuals. So, who came out ahead, Sydney Sweeney or Beyonce? That's not the point. The real story is how their campaigns revealed the invisible systems behind fashion marketing. American Eagle leaned on an all-American image rooted in whiteness and femininity that still echoes eugenic ideals of beauty. Levi's leaned on Black cultural power, embodied in Beyonce, but in a way that risked looking like commodification rather than true empowerment. In both cases, denim became the backdrop for a much bigger story about race, representation, and the ways advertising continues to shape our ideas of who belongs, who's desirable, and who gets to define culture. Denim might be universal, but the way it's marketed shows us we're still wrestling with old hierarchies. And until brands confront that history head-on, controversies like these won't just keep happening. They'll keep reminding us how much work is left to do. This was a deep dive into the politics of denim, race, and representation through Sydney Sweeney and Beyoncé's ad campaigns. If you found this analysis valuable, subscribe for more explorations into fashion, celebrity, and culture. And tell me in the comments, did these campaigns reinforce stereotypes, or did they challenge them? I'd love to hear your perspective.